Welcome to the theater. For everyone's enjoyment, we'd like to remind you of the following rules. No talking. No smoking. No littering. No red meat. No freedom of religion. And remember, all marriages must be approved by the Department of Health. Failure to obey these rules will result in immediate loss of citizenship and deportation to the island of Los Angeles. Enjoy the show.
All right, Groo, let's get right into it. Let's take a nothing worthwhile look at the iconic John Carpenter, Kurt Russell escape movies. It's Escape from New York and Escape from L.A. Groo, when you heard we were doing this topic, any initial thoughts on these movies, John Carpenter, Kurt Russell? Give us set the stage for our nothing worthwhile listeners.
At first, I was surprised that you would want to dig so deep into, because this is like the B level of like iconic characters. It's not quite on like the Terminator or Rambo level as far as like global. Like you don't see Snake Plissken lunch boxes, or cartoons or anything. But then I'm like, this is right up our alley. This is what we love.
Exactly.
This is what we love to talk about, the stuff that nobody else is talking about. So
exactly.
So then I was like, all right, this is a great idea, and I'm glad we did, because I forgot how much how groundbreaking that first movie was.
When you were talking about it, I was thinking, what was the one Terminator movie I couldn't wait to discuss with you? That was Terminator 3.
Right.
I always love discussing sort of these the
controversial ones.
Common, yeah.
Everybody loves T1 and T2, but T3 is very divisive. So those.
Well, we texted last night. All of a sudden, I went on Hulu, and Dark Fate was on, and then I watched Dark Fate and I watched Genesis, and I'll save my thoughts for perhaps another podcast. We certainly have already delved into them, but it was again another fresh watch, and it was interesting. Dark Fate, not so much, but Genesis. Definitely had some thoughts on watching it again. So, anyway, yes. All right, let's
see. Our text messaging is really just an extension of this show, or vice versa.
Absolutely,
I'm not sure.
Absolutely. Let's start off with the first Escape movie. That's Escape from New York. It is a 1981 American science fiction action film, co-written, co-scored, and directed by John Carpenter. One of the interesting things I think with John Carpenter is he scores a lot of the original music for his movies. Like he wrote that original iconic Halloween theme. Yeah. So,
and if you notice, it's interesting you say that, because he did the music for other movies of his, like They Live and Vampires, which we saw together, if you remember. You remember we saw that, and we were doing the whole time was making fun of how fat Daniel Baldwin was, because they were trying to make him into this action hero, and he could barely walk up a flight of stairs. I
want to say I think Vampires is on Hulu. I think it
is because if you just let it go after Escape from New York, mine went right into Vampires.
Interesting. Okay,
but the music for all of those sounds. It's like composers have a sound that they have, and Carpenter definitely has that. So you could see the similarities in the music there. There's even a theme in Escape from New York that sounds like it's gonna be there. It sounds like they're about to play Halloween, but then they go in a different direction.
It does. I think they both have sort of that driving synth keyboard, very 80s. Little bit of cheese to it.
It almost sounded like the guy who did like the Beverly Hills Cop, like Faltermeyer, like
Harold Faltermeyer.
Yeah, it sounded a little bit like that, but this came before him, so.
So without giving away everything, I'm just curious, and this is not even on my notes, but hearing you talk, don't give away too much, but give us a taste. You're a movie guy. What are your thoughts of John Carpenter as a director?
He's a visionary. It's tough because I haven't seen
take a bite of my Whopper.
I haven't seen as much of his work as I should, but I'll tell you what I have seen. I've seen the Escape movies. I've seen They Live, Vampires, obviously, the first Halloween. I've seen all the Halloweens, but I think he was only responsible for the first one. I think that was the only one he directed.
I think he was involved with two. He was
involved with two, but he didn't direct it. I'm thinking about the things that he's directed. He's got a vision that is unlike anybody else. He's kind of like a James Cameron in that he sees things that nobody else sees. And you could see it in the Escape movies, like as wacky and daffy as they are, they're so frickin' original. And he was also able to take, like with Halloween, he was also able to take a very simple story that had been told a million times and make it scary as hell. Halloween is just a plain old slasher movie, but he was able to make it really, truly frightening. They Live is a very underrated. I think it's aged very well because it was way ahead of his time. You say that about a lot of people, but Carpenter definitely. But actually, if you want to know what I think John Carpenter's best movie is, you'll be surprised.
Go ahead.
Starman. Do you remember Starman?
Absolutely remember
Jeff
Starman.
Bridges.
I remember.
It was really a romance.
Super enjoying it.
Yeah, it was not an action movie, and he wrote the music for that one too. But Carpenter is legendary, without a doubt, and I think he's so respected in the filmmaking community. Probably not as much in the fandom community, but he should be. He's definitely a trailblazer.
I don't want to get off topic, but I would think it would be the opposite way, because I think as a fan, his execution is a little perhaps off, but the concepts, when I start talking about these movies, the concepts are so amazingly cool and different, and perhaps the execution, and I'm not quite the movie guy that Andy is, but I would think that he's had more of a cult following, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
For example, if I didn't know that Ridley Scott directed Blade Runner, and I saw Blade Runner, I would have thought John Carpenter directed it.
All right, hold that thought, because I think that's an interesting thought.
Okay.
I will say one other thing. You mentioned James Cameron. I know James Cameron was involved in the production of Escape from New York. He was like an art director. I think so. Maybe he got some of his early starts. Wow. Yeah, special effects. I'll talk about it in a little bit. Great cast. Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef, Donald Pleasance, Ernest Borgnine, Isaac Hayes, Adrienne Barbeau,
Harry Dean
Stanton. So really surprisingly strong cast. Carpenter originally wrote the screenplay for Escape from New York in 1976 in the aftermath of Nixon's Watergate scandal. Carpenter said, "The whole feeling of the nation was one of real cynicism about the president." He wrote about the screenplay. The studio, no one wanted to make this movie because, according to Carpenter, it was too violent, too scary, too weird. The film was inspired by the film Death Wish, which was very popular at the time. He did not agree with the film's philosophy, but liked how it conveyed the sense of New York as a kind of jungle, and I wanted to make a science fiction film along these lines. So a long time ago, Groo, there was the Watergate scandal. Watergate scandal was a scandal during and after the 1972 presidential election. Do you cover that in U.S. history as a teacher?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Well, just a quick Watergate taste. We know that the United States President Richard Nixon was running for election against Democrat George McGovern. Frank Wills, a security guard, discovered clues that the former FBI and CIA agents broke into the offices of the Democratic Party and George McGovern months before the election. These people listened to phone lines and secret papers were stolen. When these men were found, it turned out that Nixon was involved and had helped them to cover it all up and might have even hired the men. Washington Post was a newspaper which played a big role in exposing the misdoings, specifically reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. This showed that the public that Nixon was not to be trusted, and society began to view him in a different light. Of course, Nixon chose to resign from office on August 9th, 1974, because he wished to not be impeached. The U.S. Congress could not impeach him if he resigned. After all this, Gerald Ford, his vice president, became the president by default. Ford later forgave and pardoned Nixon for all of his crimes. The name Watergate comes from the hotel in Washington, D.C., where the first crime took place and is often associated with political scandals. Nixon was stealing information and abusing his presidential power to try to stay in office. So from the ashes of Watergate, Escape from New York was born. I thought that was kind of interesting because there's definitely a cynicism with the president character in both movies.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, the second one, I believe, I think was came out during the Clinton administration. I think
96.
Yeah, that would be Clinton.
Okay. International film investors agreed to provide 50% of the budget, and Goldcrest Films signed a co-financing deal with them. So, Groo, in terms of budgets on a movie, if two studio films go 50-50, do they typically go 50-50 on the profits?
Every deal is different. It just depends on who your agent is and who your negotiating partner is. And, if you like Carpenter at the time, I think he was coming off Halloween, which was a game changer. So he probably he should have done very well from this. I don't know, but every deal is different.
Right, but if two companies are splitting the budget, would they work a split on the profits or something?
If they're splitting 50-50, then they would recoup. The deal would be worked out from when enough money is made by the movie to reimburse both companies. Then the deal kicks in. And it's it depends what I think. There are things like what markets are making more money, what areas. There's domestic distribution, there's international distribution. So there are a lot of different factors. It's like who's distributing, who is financing. Like it's all different things. So I would say that it all balances out. Okay. It all balances out.
Avco Embassy Pictures, the film's financial backer, preferred either Charles Bronson or Tommy Lee Jones to play the role of Snake Plissken to Carpenter's choice of Kurt Russell, who was trying to overcome the lightweight screen image conveyed by his roles in several Disney comedies. Mm-hmm. Carpenter refused to cast Bronson on the grounds that he was too old and because he worried that he could lose directorial control over the picture with an experienced actor. At the time, Russell described his character as a mercenary, and his style of fighting is a combination of Bruce Lee, the Exterminator, and Darth Vader with a Clint Eastwood vocalness. All that matters to Snake, according to the actor, is the next 60 seconds. Living for exactly that next minute is all there is. So that's a bit heavy of an explanation, but Snake Plissken was certainly a unique film character.
Yeah, and I don't think, and you tell me, I don't think he was a John Carpenter creation. I think he was a comic book character.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that there was comic book platforms after the movies. Now, I don't know if that was before or after. I did read a little bit, but it wasn't really germane to the podcast. But I did read that I think after the first one, there was some, books and novelization and, maybe graphic novelizations of the Snake character. I'll discuss. There's even some stuff that was prequel to the second movie. Because if you remember in the second movie, they reference an incident in Cleveland.
Right.
And I know that there was some kind of comic book novelization as to what exactly happened in Cleveland. So, but I get.
No, they weren't referencing Tango and Cash. That was for sure.
No, but I guess Kurt Russell, I know he was a Disney guy. I don't know his early career, but I guess he was sort of a lightweight. Was he considered a lightweight, fluffy?
Actually, no. It's interesting. Not really. He was he was Disney's go-to guy when he was a kid. He was and he was a star. But he was, I think, in movies like the computer wore tennis shoes, things like that, stuff that I've never seen, but it's all over like Disney Plus, like you could see that stuff. But he had done I think his first like adult role was for John Carpenter when he played Elvis in the movie Elvis in the late 70s. I think just after Elvis Presley died. But he was still, because, you know, the Disney guy playing Elvis, it was still kind of like music and whatever. So this was their chance to make him into, you know, not so much a serious actor, but a star. And it certainly did that, I think.
Yeah. Well, he certainly had the action hero look. He had a rigorous diet, exercise program to develop a more lean and muscular build. He also endeavored to stay in character between takes and throughout the shooting, as he welcomed the opportunity to get away from, what I have, the Disney comedies that he had done previously. We talked about this earlier, but Groo, what do you think of these method actors who stay in character when the movie's not in shooting? So reportedly, Kurt Russell stayed in Snake Plissken character, during off takes.
I get it. I've never actually witnessed it. In the time that I was working in this thing, but I get it. I get why they feel they need to do that, because it does take a lot to get into the zone.
God, you have changed.
What do you mean?
20 years ago, we goofed on all these guys.
Oh, it's still completely goofable, but no, I understand why they need to do it. The real question is
what's next? What's next? Both sides of the story is a good Phil Collins song.
Why you keep throwing that one at me? But no, the method guys. The method guys. They look. It pays dividends. Let's put it that way. But I get why they need to do it. What interests me is why some actors need it and some actors don't. But I guess that's like, why do some baseball players need batting gloves and others don't? I guess it's like the same kind of thing. But it is. I guess if I would have experienced it, like on a set, like if I was on the set, I'd be like, "Hey, Kurt, how you doing?" And he'd be like, "Call me Snake." I'd be like, "All right, what the fuck's wrong with this guy?" But I get it. I think it's overkill.
Don't mention names.
Okay.
But what was real quick, what was the douchiest, most off-putting actor behavior you saw on a set? Where you were like, wow, I can't believe this guy or this girl. Don't give me names.
I won't.
Don't go too long.
I saw an actor, he tried something in a scene that he felt that his character would do. They filmed it. Then the director said, okay, that was good, but I'd really like you to try one without it. So the actor said, okay. And then the director yells action, and the actor does it anyway. And then they almost came to blows.
Wow. Okay.
And I remember thinking that the actor who did that was being a little childish, because they already got what he wanted on film, and now the director was being a director. The director is the boss. Okay, and if the director wants you to do it a certain way, you're being paid to do it. You got to give him what he wants. He already gave you what you wanted to do. So that was I was disappointed to see that from the person who I saw it from. That's I'm on to answer that question very quickly. That's the one thing that jumps into my mind. I'm sure there are others, but we don't have time for me to dig deep into my past.
After the success of Halloween, Avco Embassy signed producer Deborah Hill and John Carpenter to a 2-picture deal. The first film from the contract was The Fog. Initially, the second film he was going to make to finish the contract was The Philadelphia Experiment, but because of script writing problems, Carpenter rejected it in favor for Escape from New York. However, Carpenter felt something was missing and recalls, this was basically a straight action film. And at one point, I realized it doesn't really have this crazy kind of humor that people from New York would expect to see. So he brought in Nick Castle, who was a friend from his film school days, who actually played the Shape, Michael Myers, in Halloween. Castle invented the cabbie character and came up with the film's ending. So kind of interesting. The film's setting proved to be a potential problem from Carpenter, who needed to create a decaying, semi-destroyed, urban locale, New York City on a shoestring budget. The film's production designer, Joe Alvis, and he rejected shooting on location in New York City because it would have been too hard to make New York City look like a destroyed city. Carpenter suggested shooting on a movie backlot, but Alves nixed the idea, I think correctly so, because the texture of a real street is not like a backlot. So listen to this. They sent Barry Bernardi, the location manager, on an all-expense-paid trip across the country to find the worst city in America. Producer Deborah Hill remembers.
I want that job. Is that not the greatest job ever invented?
So they ended up with East St. Louis. It always is East St. Louis. I've never been to poor St. Louis. But,
that's like that scene from Vacation. Roll them up. That's St. Louis.
Imagine going to the mayor and going, sir, congratulations. We're going to have an amazing economic impact. We're having a movie shot here, only to find out that in the producer's eyes, it's the worst city in America, and it's going to be depicted as some kind of urban sprawl decay on film,
Oh, my God.
I mean, they looked at, 1976, St. Louis, Missouri. Block after block was burnt out rubble. In some places, there was absolutely nothing. So you could see 3 or 4 blocks away. Alvis found an old bridge to double as the 69th Street Bridge. The filmmaker purchased the Old Chains of Rocks Bridge for $1, and then they gave back to the government afterwards. I guess that doubled up as in the bridge scene. They filmed in some other locales as well. Carpenter and his crew persuaded the city of East St. Louis to shut off the electricity to 10 blocks at a time at night to give it a more darker sort of look. We'd finish shooting at about 6 a.m., and I'd just go to sleep at 7 a.m. when the sun would be coming up. I'd wake up around 5 or 6 p.m., depending on whether or not we had dailies, and by the time I got going, the sun would be setting. So I wanted to ask you, because I've heard this word before, what exactly in the film industry is a daily?
A daily is you basically watch what you've shot that day. Unedited, you watch all the takes, every single thing that you've shot, and you like the producer, because the producer a lot of times, if he's doing his job, the producer's not on the set, because the director doesn't like the producer or the writer to really be on the set because they'll get in the way of what the director's vision is. So the dailies are what the director will watch and will send to the stakeholders to show what they've done. It's like basically saying, here's the work that I did today. Let me know what you think. And from that, they get an idea. Like the director might say, all right, we got what we needed today. Or he could say, we're going to have to reshoot this. Like that's what dailies are. Okay. And it's basically no different than if you've ever seen on TV like the monitors when they want, they film a movie and they're watching on the monitors. That's basically what dailies are.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a pretty intense process.
It sounds more complicated than it is, especially today when you can literally text somebody the dailies instead of. They literally used to have to bring the canisters of film from the set to wherever the production company was, and sometimes that could be hours. Sometimes they'd have to fly it across the country. Now with the digital world, it's funny how so many things are 1,000,000 times easier, yet 10 million times more expensive. So
And I'm assuming if it's sent digitally, not to get off topic, but does that stuff have to be really encrypted so no one hacks into it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. They got to be real careful with that stuff.
The gladiator fight to the death scene between Snake and Slag, played by professional wrestler Ox Baker, was filmed in Grand Hall at St. Louis Station. Kurt Russell stated, that day was a nightmare. All I did was swing a spiked bat at a guy and get swung on in return. He threw a trash can in my face about 5 times. I could have wound up in pretty bad shape. Various interior scenes. Groo was shot on a soundstage. They used some different locales like Atlanta, even New York. They were given access to Liberty Island, Quote, "We were the first film company in history allowed to shoot on Liberty Island at the Statue of Liberty at night. They let us have the whole island to ourselves. We were lucky. It wasn't easy to get that initial permission. They had a bombing there 3 months earlier, and we were worried about the trouble." Carpenter was interested in creating two distinct looks for the movie. One is a police state, high tech, lots of neon, a United States dominated by underground computers. That was easy to shoot compared to the Manhattan Island prison sequences, which had a few lights, mainly torchlights, like feudal England. Certain matte paintings were rendered by James Cameron, who was at the time a special effects artist with Roger Corman's The City. 3 screens on the control panel display wireframe animations of the landing target on the World Trade Center and surrounding buildings. John Carpenter wanted high-tech computer graphics, which were very expensive, even for such simple animation. Hey, Groo, by the way, before we start, do you know anything about pro wrestler Ox Baker?
Other than hearing the name, no. I've heard the name, but I did not recognize him. So the answer is no.
He died in October 20th, 2014. He was an actor as well. Let's see here. He was known for his Machiavellian, very thick eyebrows and his finishing move, the Heart Punch. And he had a famous catchphrase, "I love to hurt people." He appeared in several movies. He was mostly an AWA guy. He opened a pro wrestling school in 1988, made famous for training Mark Calloway, a.k.a.
The Undertaker.
And Brian Clark, a.k.a. Do you remember?
Wait. Brian Clark, that's not B. Brian Blair. That's
no, that was
Brian Clark is Crush? No, that's Brian Adams.
Yeah, I think Brian Clark was Adam Bomb.
Adam Bomb, okay.
Anyway, I think he was part of Chronic in WCW. They had a little bit of a tag team, a little bit of
I wouldn't have made that distinction. I didn't know his real name.
Yeah, interesting.
What other movies was Ox Baker in?
He was in the very famous movie Blood Circus.
Oh, that guy?
Wait till 2 weeks from now. Our Blood Circus podcast is going to be it's going to be a big one.
After our tribute to Funaki.
Yeah, we talked about the cast. I mean, Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef as Bob Hawke, Ernest Borgnine as the cabbie, Donald Pleasance as the President of the United States,
Adrienne Barbeau's cleavage.
Harry Dean Stanton as Brain, Adrienne Barbeau as Maggie, Tom Atkins, who's like an 80s icon.
Yeah, Lethal Weapon.
Remy. Susan Hubley as the girl in Chock full o' Nuts.
Yeah. The cigarette girl.
Ox Baker.
Charles Cyphers.
Yes, Charles Cyphers as Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Frank Doubleday as Romero. So, very, very interesting, if anything, underrated cast. I mean, Donald Pleasance. I mean, that guy is just great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
They were all, look what you have. You have Oscar winner Ernest Borgnine as cabbie. Adrienne Barbeau was actually very, very famous at that point.
Yes, she was. I thought she was good.
She was terrific, and she great cleavage, as always.
Yes.
Harry Dean Stanton, legend. Who else? Yeah, and like you said, Atkins, and they really did have a really spectacular cast in this movie. Without a doubt. Isaac Hayes, the Duke. Right?
Yeah, I actually thought his interplay with the president was probably the best acting in the film.
Who? Isaac Hayes?
Pleasance. And Pleasance reacting to the Duke.
Yeah.
I thought that was the... all right, Groo. In 1988, let's hit the plot. Following a 400% increase in crime, the United States has turned Manhattan into a giant maximum security prison.
Oh, wait, by the way... Somebody else was in both movies.
I know who.
Okay, do you want to wait for it, or do you want to talk about it now?
No, but we could talk about it. You're talking to
the narrator.
Referring to the narrator?
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Narrator is Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, in both movies. I didn't read anything about the movies before rewatching them. I had never known that. I guess the first time I saw both of them, I didn't pick it up, but now it's clear as day.
I don't know. It's definitely a female, but it didn't sound, now that I listen to it, I see it's Jamie Lee Curtis. But if I just listened to it raw without knowing it, I wouldn't have think it was Jamie Lee Curtis.
My 45-year-old self my 45-year-old ears could definitely tell it was Jamie Lee Curtis, which is why my 20-year-old ears, when I saw it for the first time, probably had no clue. But she did both of them. She did both of them.
Something else in my 20s perked up when I watched Jamie Lee Curtis.
Well, when you watch Jamie Lee Curtis, but listening to Jamie Lee Curtis is not, it's not going to do much.
Yeah, watching her in the 80s and 90s was a great experience. Now she's doing like Activia diverticulitis commercials.
Can we do a Trading Places podcast and just talk about her? Just talk about her one scene.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, Groo, the premise of New York or Manhattan turning into a giant maximum security prison kind of resonated with me a little bit. Perhaps something that could be feasible in the future, perhaps, in a weird dystopian way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's... I mean, I looked at it now, rewatching it now, I mean, it looks like some of the... How do I put this without offending anybody? It looks like the way some media outlets are making certain cities look right now. Does that make sense to you? In this climate, with the protests and the rioting that's sort of been going on, the media has definitely been playing a role in making it look like a certain type of thing that may or may not be representative of what it is.
Lord, you just want to just put forth your narrative. I mean,
wait a second.
Me that
hold on.
The media is what, increasing or adding fuel to the fire?
I'm saying I think what they're showing might not be truly representative of what's going on. They're showing what. And that's what the media does, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to get ratings. They're supposed to. I don't have a problem with it. It's just they're showing what people are going to watch. There's nothing interesting about. Oh, look down the street. It's a nice neighborhood, nice boutique. Look, a little flower shop over there. No, but nobody's going to watch that. They want to see the shit blowing up and the stuff that looks like what Escape from New York looks like. That's with the people, just with the ghoulish people hanging around. Like, that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of sometimes when you watch the news what they show. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying it is. And
no, you're saying it's wrong.
I didn't say that.
Putting it out there, and another person could say some media outlets don't even show that. I mean, I know what you're referring to, so you want to talk around it, but I would say some media outlets won't even acknowledge that there's violence going on in our cities. And,
I agree.
And people, let me just say this. They will rue the day when that violence comes to their doorstep. So you're
absolutely right.
So anytime you have what's in the guise of social justice or anything like that, but you have violence, and most of the time they're destroying their own people's property and causing mayhem. I believe it's gotten toned down. I haven't heard much about it lately, but
that's true. I'm just saying what watching the Escape movies reminded me of. In this day and age, and I'm not saying that it just is what it is, Okay. But yeah, you're absolutely right about like there are some outlets that are not showing that at all. That's wrong, and it's wrong, and you're right. It is wrong to misrepresent it. 100% right. You're 100% right on that. But in any case, watching these movies reminded me of what I'm seeing on the news.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to deny there's a certain relevancy today, and there's some themes about it for sure that are relevant today and in the past, in the future, absolutely. Let's see here. You've got again. I wrote in my notes. So you have that cheesy organ riff that has become synonymous with all John Carpenter films. Even the graphics sort of have that Halloween, sort of that big white font kind of feel. You got Tom Atkins on the screen with his cigarette, right in the mid-'80s haircut. Helicopters giving you that military kind of feel. And again, this starts in 97. President is on a peace summit to Hartford, Connecticut. Air Force One is hijacked. The president is given a tracking bracelet and is handcuffed to a briefcase before being escorted to an escape pod. The aircraft crashes, but the pod survives. Police are dispatched to rescue the president. Romero, who's he's Duke's right-hand man. He's got that war. I mean, the costumes are so bad in this movie, Groo.
But that's part of its charm to me.
I don't know. I feel like it's like electric. It's like Electric Boogaloo and Mad Max all in one.
In expanding on the costumes, I actually wanted to talk about this. I love the detail in the costumes. Yes, they're over the top, but even look at the Duke's car. He's got the chandeliers on each side. I mean, I saw that. I'm like, who thinks of this shit? And I'm like, this is great. This is just, so yes, they are bad, but they're so bad that they're appropriate. Like the special effects, even the fight scenes, like you can almost tell they're purposely not looking like they're really hitting each other.
Okay, well, here, let's get to it, because I could go through the whole movie.
Okay.
I mean, my thing is, when I watched this movie as a kid, I was truly fearful. The notion that New York could be, in a sense, a prison. Growing up in the 70s, you had Son of Sam. I mean, New York City was not a safe place. When we went as a family, you stood right by your mom and dad. It was so that kind of resonated with me. Looking at it, as you said, with my 49-year-old eyes, I think the concept is absolutely brilliant. But when I watched it, the graphics are well, I'm going to say it doesn't look like a dime was spent in this movie. The graphics,
I agree.
The plane looks cheesy. It looks like some of it is shot on a back lot. Throw some newspapers and now you have litter. The costumes felt very Mad Max. Like they didn't really innovate off of that.
You're repeating every thought that I had last night. The sound is so bad in this movie. It's so canned. The gunshots are like it's almost like watching like a Roadrunner film. I don't know. I think this is the kind of movie that would be rife for a remake, but a big budget, big scale. And then here's the other thing. Well, all right, let me go to you. What do you think what some of the things I had to say? I agree with all that, but it didn't bother me because, like I said, it's part of its charm. And that's what, these movies are cult classics, and that's, it's almost like it's like what they're doing with Dune. They're making a big like multi-million-dollar remake of the 1984 movie. And I don't know if I would love to see a prequel of sorts that sort of tells us more about the character of Snake, because they don't really give us that much as far as personal. We know what his crimes were and we know where he comes from, but I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. But I don't mind the low budget, except, and this is the case with both movies. Like, for example, in Escape from L.A., I know we'll get to it, but remember the scene where they're surfing in Escape from L.A.? So hilariously bad, but fitting for the movie, to me. All right? That's the type of movie these things are. My problem is that I really wish, in both cases, it would have felt like they were in New York and L.A., and it never felt like that. Like, sometimes they would throw in a shot of a street sign. Oh, look, it's 59th and Broadway, But it wouldn't, like, I would have loved to have seen things that, because that would make it even scarier to see, things that we are familiar with, like, and it really feels like they're on the downtrodden streets of New York and L.A. too.
Well,
so that's the only thing that bothered me.
Yeah, I don't want to say my thoughts for L.A., but they did that in L.A. It was like, oh, let's just put a Wilshire sign.
I know.
Right
Well, that's what I mean. The same exact thing.
Let's throw let's throw some garbage and skull bones on the ground, and this is L.A.
You're like, oh, great, we're on the Sunset Strip, and the only reason we know that is because they show us the sign. So they cheap out a little bit on that, and that's the only thing that bothers me about the low-budget nature of it. Everything else I feel is appropriate, because that's what that's the kind of movie it is. That's to me, it's part of its charm. It's like with the Terminator, the original Terminator. Would you want to change anything about that?
No, but Terminator's a better movie. It's just,
that's true, but there are some pretty bad special effects in there too.
Okay, but they did more.
They did more with less.
Whatever they were given.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You're right about that. You're right about that.
I mean, I just think here, for me, I guess the best way to put it was it didn't age well to me. I think it's an incredible concept. It's a great concept. The little wrinkle with he's injected with the little explosives, and he's got 22 hours to save the president. I thought that was a great plot twist, but the set looks very, very poor.
Yes,
the costumes, like the thugs, are all just like white guys in like ripped denim, and it's like a bad stereotype of what you think that might look like. I don't think it innovated anything. It's a great storyline. It's a great cast, and I'll even get to the cast. Ernest Borgnine, he's completely overacting. Hey, Snake!
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't even. And even like Kurt Russell, it's like, hey, it's like I don't know.
He's exactly like you described it, like Clint Eastwood withdrawal.
Very, like they didn't. It was very hammy. I felt Escape from New York. The acting pieces, except for, I really bought into Donald Pleasance. I mean, at the end when he kills Duke, hey, number one, like he's been tortured and he's a dick too. He's a bad guy too. But
both movies, the main villain is the president.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, all right, we don't have to go through it piece by piece, but I find that
I get it. I think story-wise, it's way ahead of its time.
Yes, I agree.
And physically, it's behind its time. And I kind of like how they meet in the middle. It's to me, like I said, it's part of its charm. Like I said, the only thing that bothered me is I never felt like we were in New York, and that would have added to the horror of it. Because I remember you said how frightening it was to you. Imagine if you really felt like you were in the New York that and it never ever feels that way. Unfortunately,
no. I think the movie does a good job at the end. It's sort of when they get the president back and they're trying to rush him to safety, the movie takes an uptick.
Yes,
the tension. It has a little bit of that Terminator chase feel in the streets with the. I thought. Actually, the fight against Slag, where Kurt Russell, where he kills him, was a great scene. And then, of course, my favorite personal, I enjoyed the scene where the president when he shoots Duke. But I thought the most emotional scene was Maggie Adrienne Barbeau when she says, "I'm staying here after Brain is killed."
Yeah.
And Kurt Russell's like, "Come on," and Duke runs her over and kills her. And that was like the best overall scene.
When she's shooting at him, when he's And in a sense, am I mixing my scenes here? But isn't that what leads directly to Duke's death? To the Duke's death, because he basically runs over her with the car, but then he's got to be on foot, and that makes him vulnerable to the president when the president has him at gunpoint.
Well, you're right. He kills Duke kills all the guards. And the president picks up one of the security guards' guns and shoots.
Right, but he's on foot because his car is busted.
Duke has Pliskin lined up for the kill shot. And then the president reaches over and kills. And then he goes like, "Hey, number one."
Yeah.
I love that scene.
It's great.
Donald Pleasance is just the best hard-boiled 80s, early 90s actor,
Yeah.
Like overacting, but like good overacting.
But that's what this movie is that's what it calls for. It's not calling for Shakespeare. It's calling for, I can almost picture Carpenter saying, "All right, ham it up, dial it up to 11, guys. That's what we're doing here." Like, that's what it seems like to me, because it's different. Because it's different than Halloween. Like, Halloween had a shoestring budget, but it was a different kind of movie. It feels much more real, and it feels much more grounded in reality. This is supposed to feel dystopian. It's supposed to feel way over the top. And they had more money to do Escape from New York than they had to do Halloween. He obviously had an idea of what this movie should look and feel like. How do I know that? Because when they had triple the budget for Escape from L.A., it still looked exactly the same.
Ugh. I got a lot to say about that.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Yeah, look, he definitely wanted a comedic element to it, because in the notes he brought in Nick Castle to kind of ham it up,
right?
Add some comedy elements to it. I just, I found Russell's performance to be, I don't even know what the word is. It's just everything was, I thought Stallone did a better job with Rambo, which is, in a sense, a little bit more one-dimensional. Really flesh it out. I thought Ernest Borgnine was completely over the top. Harry Dean Stanton is always pretty solid.
He was.
I thought Pleasance was the best overall acting job in the movie as the president. And then what did you think of the ending? The president, Russell Pliskin comes to him and says, basically, a lot of people died, gave their life so you could live, and he gives him a very blow-off answer. And then he has the tape with the nuclear fusion secrets in it, and then he gives the president the wrong tape, which was the Cabbies old bandstand music
Bandstand
tape.
Boogie. That's the name of the song, Bandstand Boogie.
Yeah, rolls. What'd you think of that?
I mean, it's a great ending, but I think there's a plot hole there, because didn't he give him the tape before he asked the question?
Well, he got the tape from Cabby in the car.
Right, but what I'm saying is it made it seem like he embarrassed him because of the answer that he gave to that question. How do you feel about that?
He certainly did. Well, this is what I have. As the president prepares for a televised speech to the leaders at the summit meeting, he thanks Snake and tells him that he could have anything he wants. All Snake wants to know is how the president feels about the people who died saving him. The president offers only a half-hearted regret and lip service for their sacrifice. As Snake walks away in disgust, Hawk offers him a job as his deputy, but Snake keeps on walking. Then I wrote as in my own notes, a lot of smoking in the 80s, apparently.
Yeah.
There's a cigarette lit in every scene.
Yeah.
The president live speech commences. He plays the cassette tape. To his embarrassment, it only plays Cabby's song, Bandstand Boogie. As Snake walks away, he intentionally tears the magnetic tape out of the cassette reel with the actual message that was supposed to be intended by the president.
Yeah, see, if I were redoing this, I would make sure that Snake would ask him the question, and then he would give him that garbage answer, and then Snake intentionally giving him the wrong tape because of that answer.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that. I think they missed the mark there, but the idea behind it is fine. It's perfect. But at that point, does it even matter anymore? I mean, we've already been on this great adventure, and Snake is saved. We're given spoilers, but
Oh no, he's saved.
Like the story is over. Like at that point, the story is over. I didn't even expect anything more to happen. I just remember that the last line was the name's Pliskin. I just forgot who he had said it to. He said it to what was the guy's name? Van Cleef.
Hawk?
Hawk or Hawk, whatever. Yeah. So I had forgotten about the tape thing. But that's I think that's a little bit of a goof there. But the ending is fine. It's not earth-shattering. It's like the rest of the movie. It's hammy and silly and fun.
I
thought that Pleasance played it off beautifully. The look on his face when the music is playing was great. Yeah, it was terrific. So I got no problem with the ending.
Gru, what was the commercial response to Escape from New York? How did it do at the box office? Escape from New York was.
Wait, go ahead. I thought you were asking me.
Well, I was as setting up. I like to set up. But go ahead. You want to give me? A guess
I believe.
As to what it made?
Remember,
this is July of 1981.
Yes, I believe that the movie made on a very low budget. I believe it made about $25 million in the United States, and that was also the budget for Escape from L.A. I think, if memory serves, those are the numbers that I'm recalling.
Well, I don't have the at least on these notes right now the budget for Escape from L.A. But yes, you're right. It grossed more than $25 million at the box office. Escape from New York. What
was the budget?
I don't know if I have the actual budget. I don't. Film became a cult classic and was followed by a sequel, Escape from L.A. in 1996, which also directed and was written by Carpenter and starred Russell. Grew the critical response to Escape from New York. The film generally received positive reviews. As of October 4th, 2019, it had an 85% positive rating at the film review website Rotten Tomatoes from 62 reviews, with the critical consensus featuring an atmospherically grimy, futuristic metropolis. Escape from New York is a strange, entertaining jumble of thrilling action and oddball weirdness. Newsweek magazine wrote of Escape and John Carpenter, he has a deeply ingrained B-movie sensibility, which is both his strength and his limitation. Mm-hmm. Interesting. He does clean work, but settles for too little. He uses Russell well here, however. Time magazine Richard Corliss wrote, John Carpenter is offering this summer's moviegoers a rare opportunity to escape from the air-conditioned torpor of ordinary entertainment into the hothouse humidity of their own paranoia. It's a trip worth taking. Vincent Canby, in his review for the New York Times, wrote, the film is not to be analyzed too solemnly, though. It's toughly told, a very tall tale with one of the best escape and escapist movies of the season. My notes go on to say that Escape from New York has influenced everything from popular video games. J.J. Abrams, producer of the 2008 film Cloverfield, mentioned that the scene in his film, which shows the head of the Statue of Liberty crashing into a New York street, was inspired by the poster for Escape from New York. Empire magazine ranked Snake Plissken number 29 in their 100 greatest movie characters poll.
Wow.
So, Gru, before we wrap it up on Escape from New York, any final thoughts or words on the film?
I think the response to it is perfect. The ones who like it, like me, appreciate it for what it is, not what it's not. I'm surprised that they would rank Snake Plissken up there so high based on two relatively unseen movies by, you ask anybody under the age of 30 if they've ever heard of Escape from New York, and they probably haven't, unless they're like a fan, unless they're one of these Comic-Con people. But I think I really enjoy the movie. It's nonstop fun, nonstop action. Like you said, the acting is so joyously over the top, and sometimes it's the kind of movie you got to be in the mood for. I happened to be in the mood for it last night. If you're looking for Oscar contenders, look somewhere else. It's just fun, and it's a different world and a different type of thing. And Kurt Russell is a fucking movie star. He cannot be. He's one of those guys who, if he tried to be bad, he couldn't. He's just so natural as a presence, as a screen presence, and I think this movie established him as that. Him with the mullet that he still has today, and his just style, the way he carries himself. It's a cult classic and deserves to be remembered as such. A cult classic. Is it a classic movie in the realm of greatest movies ever made? Absolutely not. But a cult classic, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I was a little bit more disappointed on my rewatch of it. I mean, look, obviously,
you remember liking it more when you first.
I remember watching it in my room, late at night, lights off, scared, being this great action adventure, and when I watched it today, it just looked a little bit canned. It looked a little bit cheaply made. Listen, maybe the producers, they can't help that with the budget. The cast is excellent. The cast is actually top notch.
They sell it. That's the thing.
I thought it was a bit of overacting here. I wish they would have. I think there's an amazing sci-fi action story here, and
I'm going to go out on a ledge and predict that you liked Escape from L.A. better than Escape from New York.
Oh, hell no.
Really?
No. Oh. And I'll get to it right here. Here's the difference, I think, in listening to what you're saying about it, too. Here's my difference. Escape from New York, I feel like they really respected the material, where Escape from L.A., they went just full-on ham. And it was, you talk about a note-for-note sequel.
Yes, same story. Same exact story.
Oh, come on. It's different locale. Literally the timing of the movie, you could place the two movies. They'll do on YouTube a conspiracy. It's literally, he fights Slag. He's in the basketball scene with the guns.
Snake.
I just felt like whereas New York was the initial and they respected the material at least, here the same cheesy copter that they fly into, and again, he's going to get hit with, now it's a virus instead of a micro explosive.
But it's the president at the center of all evil again, and embarrassing him at the end and doing it. Yeah, it's note for note. Let me ask you this though: did you, before you watched it this week, had you ever seen Escape from L.A.?
Yes, and I didn't like it when I watched it in my late 20s.
So did you, like me, see it in the theater? I did.
I don't remember where I saw it, but I know. Here's what I remember exactly watching in the theater. When they did that surfing scene, I was like, oh, no, I was like, enough. I mean, come on, Groo. Come on.
But part of to me, and look, Escape from L.A. is a bad movie. Escape from New York is not a bad movie. Okay? Escape from New York is much better, and Escape from L.A., even though a lot of people, for whatever reason, like Escape from L.A. better, I don't understand it. But that surfing scene doesn't bother me because it's Peter Fonda. That's why. That's why I like it. If it's if it was Peter Fonda or Dennis Hopper or any of those like late 60s, kind of like hippie guys, that's why it worked. Okay, if it was somebody else, it wouldn't have worked. So to me,
why is that? So what? Are you telling me that Bad Grandpa works because it's a De Niro film? I mean,
no, because if well,
so
wait a second.
Stupid.
Wait a second.
Come on.
Wait a second.
They're gonna ride a tsunami?
Hold on. I'm gonna give you a situation where Bad Grandpa would have worked if they were playing off De Niro's image. If they made him like a mafia guy hiding like in the witness protection program, and that was his character instead of just this goofball grandpa. But they didn't do that. They didn't want to be creative like that. So, but Peter Fonda is perfectly cast for that tiny little part.
I didn't say okay. I'm not talking.
That's
about
why.
Peter
But that's why that the fakeness of that whole thing doesn't bother me. Okay,
You're playing it complete. It's like let's just watch Jason X Goes to Space.
No, it's winking. It's winking at the audience. It doesn't make it a good movie. It's not. It's a bad movie, but it's definitely winking at the audience. And maybe that's why Escape from L.A. is not taken seriously as a movie, because that's all they're doing. I mean, look at the cast in that one. Cliff Robertson, the playing the president. I mean, that's not Donald Pleasance. And
no, but it's not a bad cast. Let me get to here.
Okay, go ahead.
John Carpenter. Hold on. Let me read you this. John Carpenter, quote: "Escape from L.A. is better than the first movie. 10 times better. It's got more to it. It's more mature. It's got a lot more to it. I think Some people didn't like it because they felt it was a remake, not a sequel. I suppose it's the old question of whether you like Rio Bravo or El Dorado better. They're essentially the same movie. They both had their strengths and weaknesses. I don't know. You never know why a movie is going to make it or not. People didn't want to see Escape that time, but they really didn't want to see The Thing. You just wait. You've got to give me a little while. People will say, you know, what was wrong with me? So I even wrote in my notes, surprising that Carpenter actually was quoted here saying, Escape from L.A. Is a better movie. Excuse me, that's the Whopper. That's the Whopper talking. Escape from L.A. is a better movie as compared to Escape from New York. Thoughts? Now, I want to just add one thing before I toss it to you.
Okay.
He references the movie The Thing. The Thing is one of the science fiction all-time classic cult movies, and it takes everything seriously. The premise, the wackiness, everything seriously. Don't give me Escape from L.A., even it is a note-for-note remake, but I could live with it if they took it seriously. Don't have Kurt Russell's fucking surfing on a CGI bullshit 40-foot wave with a 90-year-old Peter Fonda, but he somehow gets into the back of makes it on the top of Steve Buscemi's car.
I agree with you.
I mean, give me something. I mean, at least respect the material to take it seriously. That's the difference. That's the difference between New York and L.A. New York, they take it seriously. It may not, the execution may not be great per se. That's debatable, but they take it seriously. Here, it's like everything is a knock and a wink. And I don't want that, and I don't think you want that either.
No, but when I remember when I saw that in the theater, if it was done differently. Like if it wasn't Peter Fonda or it wasn't like it was obviously very meticulously cast, that part. Okay. So I was saying that's why I can enjoy it for that. Do I enjoy this as part of the narrative, as part of the movie? No, it's just thrown in there. But I'm enjoying watching it. I'm enjoying laughing at it because it looks so terrible and because it's Kurt Russell and Peter Fonda. It's fun to watch. So, but I don't. But just like the cast isn't taking it seriously, the filmmakers aren't taking it seriously, and neither am I as a moviegoer.
Well, I'm just surmising that. I'm telling you as a viewer.
Oh, it's obvious it's obvious they're not taking it seriously. I mean, it's obvious.
Am I being too much of a baby?
No. Your assessment is correct. We're disagreeing on the novelty of that one scene. I look at it as a novelty. You look at it as like it's so bad and it hurts the movie terribly. And you're probably right. I'm just saying my reaction to it is I'm forgetting about all that and just enjoying the idea of them. I could picture them sitting around and it's like, yeah, let's get Peter Fonda to do this. That would be really fun. Like that.
I know I was excited to see the movie because I'm a science fiction guy.
Right.
I love sci-fi. I love sci-fi action. So when L.A. came out, now here's one other thing. It took 15 years, which is quite a long time for a sequel. I don't really have any notes beyond saying I'm assuming because of New York had a cult following, but it wasn't a massive moneymaker, Escape from New York. I'm assuming. Right?
No, it made – well, the thing is it made $25 million on like probably $1 million budget. That's a hit,
Right, but I'm saying it took 15 years. So I think
if memory serves, because I remember being surprised that they were doing a sequel. But at the
only
time,
thing I have was Carpenter was quoted as saying Snake Plissken was a character he loved, and we wanted to do another go around with the character again.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think Kurt Russell did too. Kurt Russell is a producer and a writer on Escape from L.A. He's credited as both. He was a bona fide movie star by then, so they probably thought it would make, it was probably good for another $10 to $20 million on his name alone. And I think a lot of like Comic-Con comic book fan people were screaming for it. Unfortunately, they didn't go to see it because I think it was a bomb, but I did. But I saw it for the same reason that you did. It looked like a fun, action science fiction movie, and we love those type things.
Yeah, the trailer is great.
Yes, and it was, and on that level,
the rest of it is shit.
Yes, on that level, it disappoints big time, 100%. But it's still, but I still enjoyed watching it last night. I really did.
He is the ultimate fence sitter. He won't I don't know. I find.
Well, I'm not saying you can say that something is a bad movie, yet I liked it anyway. You can say that. There's nothing.
Well, I'm saying you're right. I'm trying to think of something that, for me, because I think you're right. But I was I left that theater so disappointed. I remember that surfing scene. I was double birding the screen. I'm like, are you guys kidding me?
I remember leaving the theater being but not disappointed or angry, but just all right, I'll forget I ever saw that movie. But I'm still glad I saw it. I'm trying to think of examples of other movies like that. One that springs to mind a little bit is, you're going to hate me for this one, but
Porky's?
No, well, Porky's is fun for other reasons, but Eddie and the Cruisers,
and I'll even say to you,
and its sequel.
Even some of the Friday the 13th movies, they're bad movies, but they try to take source material and treat it seriously.
Yes.
And treat it with some relevancy. And we even talk about that with pro wrestling. When they put time and invest into a storyline, they don't cut it short. It's realistic. They take it seriously. I don't want to belabor the point, but
I think when you're doing something like that, you have to, if you have something that's so ridiculous, it's the cast's job to sell it to the audience, to sell the nonsense to the audience. And for some reason, in both of these movies, more in the first one they do it well.
The first one was come on.
First one they do it well. The second one they really don't. But I always point to, and even though it's a completely different type of movie, I always point to the movie Airplane. Because it's the cast that makes that movie so funny, because they are playing it completely straight as if their lives are in danger. And
but that's what I'm saying.
That is not what, and these guys they don't ham it up in Airplane. They are playing it completely straight. Here, they do the opposite. Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with you. They take a comedy, but they take the material seriously.
Yep.
It's a dumb slapstick double on top, but they take it seriously.
Yes.
And they're good performances.
And there's not one moment in that movie, in Airplane, and I know we're getting off topic, but there's not one moment in the movie you believe that they are on this doomed flight. Okay? And yes. Here, the cast doesn't quite sell us on the nonsense. They just don't. They just because they're the balance isn't quite, and maybe that's more on the director than the cast. Maybe.
I just got a phone call from India. They said, "Hurry the fuck up. Let's go." Look, let's go over the cast, Groo. It's a pretty solid cast, as Andy had mentioned. Some of them: Kurt Russell again as Snake Plissken, Steve Buscemi as Map to the Stars Eddie, Peter Fonda as surfing legend Pipeline, Cliff Robertson as President for Life, Valerie Galino as Talsma, Stacy Keach as Commander Malloy, Pam Grier as Hirsch Las Palmas, Bruce Campbell as Surgeon General of Beverly Hills, George Coraface as Cuervo Jones, Robert Carradine as Skinhead, Breckin Meyer as Surfer, some big names.
Yeah, Robert Carradine. Robert, how much do you think Robert Carradine got for his 30-second role?
I know. He was in there for a minute. I don't know. Well, look, Groo, I could go. We've already even discussed. We can go over the plot. It's almost literally.
We don't have to. It's the same plot.
But, I mean, isn't that just a little lazy to you?
Yes, 100%. I think they were counting on goodwill from people to excuse that, and just to say, "Hey, we get Snake Plissken back in another adventure." If it was a comic book, it would have been perfect. You can do that in comic books, but if you're gonna make a movie, you got to break some new ground. And they just maybe Carpenter said, now that we've got a budget, let's tell the same story, but throw some money into it. Yet they still made the same mistakes that they made earlier. It still looks fake. It's still the costumes and the set design still look cheap as hell.
Yes.
Which was surprising to me, because I remember thinking that, all right, now that we're not in the early 80s anymore, where if a movie gets released to the theater, it's got to be, you got to spend a little money and do a little better than phoning it in. But yeah, story wise, note for note, like you said, very lazy, and they were resting on.
The only scene that I found a little bit original and unique, in which I enjoyed, is his interaction with Bruce Campbell as the Surgeon General of Beverly Hills. The whole kind of riff on the plastic surgery thing, that was at least a little current, because you're talking about late 90s and
but even that's another wink and nod to the audience with Bruce Campbell.
Oh my God, you love the pipeline scene, but when I say I like the Surgeon General,
I like it. I like it too, but I like it for the same reason. Because it's Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead, it's like it makes it. There's a connection there, so yes, I like it. For the same reason you do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even watching it back a second time, I was even more disappointed, because I think the first time I watched it, what stood out to me was what you said: the look and the feel is cheap. The CGI is really, I hate to say it, but almost horrifically bad, given now that you're in the late 90s.
Yes.
And then watching it again this time, I noticed it was literally it's almost like if you did Rocky 1 and Rocky same. It's literally the same freaking movie, except a different city and a couple of little minor nuance changes. It's literally the time element.
But you want to know something? It's a different city, but it looks exactly the same. So what's the difference? That's the problem. That goes back to the fact that you never really get the sense that you're in a apocalyptic Los Angeles. And that's what the Mad Max movies did so much better.
I mean, that's why I'm saying, I could almost see this working as a big budget, look, and just hear me out. I don't know. Get fucking Jason Statham, The Rock, Cena. Get a pumped up guy. Take it seriously. Put some big money into it. Because I think the concept back in the day, like in the early 80s, Escape from New York, I mean, I remember really being blown away by the whole story. The plot was really cool. Kidnapping the president, military city, the worst of the worst. And this one guy's got to go through everybody to save the president. And he's on a time limit with, injectables that's going to explode. I remember I was like, wow, that's a really cool plot. But,
you know what?
The delivery, especially on the second one, is just god-awful.
Yeah, and you know what? You want to know? I just realized it. I have two things to say. First thing I want to say is I just realized that during the movie, you tell me, during both movies actually, because the big tension thing is supposed to be the fact that Snake is literally a time bomb. He's got to get this done. You forget about that, don't you? Like, you don't feel that, I didn't feel that tension. Like we can't stop and fight this guy. He's running out of time. He's got to get these movies, if you're going to have that as a plot device, you got to use it. And they didn't really do that. Every now and then he'd glance down and see how much time he's got left. But that's it. Like, you don't get that sense of urgency for whatever reason. And the second thing I want to say is about what, like you said, like, get some, one of today's big stars and put some money into it. I would want to go the other way. I'd want to see a Logan-style one of these with Kurt Russell today. Well, that's what I'd be interested in. No, yeah. Like Logan, Snake. like older and
Snake on his final legs.
Like Logan. You saw Logan, right?
Okay. Same
idea.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that's how I'd want to see it.
I mean, but take it seriously. It could be violent. It could be dark. That's
yeah. I would if I was able to advise them, I'd be like, okay, you had your fun. Now take the character and send him off into the sunset the way you could have, and do it right and take it seriously and really make us really feel, because Snake is not a good guy. And it's almost difficult to root for him because he's not a good guy. And I don't know, that line, I guess maybe Carpenter did that on purpose, like the line between good and evil is so thin. But
right.
I don't know. You compared him like Rambo, and to me there's no comparison.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I did write in my notes. It's so funny you mention that. I know you're going to rip me.
I won't.
Perhaps not the first blood, but I felt there was some. Oh Lord! I did have in my notes comparing Rambo to Snake Plissken a little bit, and actually, not that I never felt Stallone was over the top. I actually liked Stallone's performance, though some of the Rambo movies were well over the top. But I felt like, especially in the second one, it's literally almost a parody. It's just everything is.
I think I agree with you. I would say that with the Rambo series, as far as his portrayal of the character goes, 1 and 4 are the high water marks of that. 2, 3, and 5 are just like, shoot 'em up, blow 'em up, and call it a day. And yes, bordering on self-parody. Although I like 5 better than you do. But 2 and 3 are, I would put them in the, that's what a big budget, John Carpenter movie would be. Or a John Carpenter escape movie would be. Same kind of over-the-top hammy acting from all the other characters. Think about it. Think about Rambo 2 right there. Okay, you have Rambo who hardly talks, like Snake, yet all these other colorful people around him who do nothing but talk. And you have great character actors in there. You have Richard Crenna, you have Charles Napier as the Politico guy, you have Martin Kove, Kreese from the Karate Kid movies who's there, you have Steven Berkoff, who was the bad guy from Beverly Hills Cop, and you have them hamming it up to sort of juxtapose against Stallone, who's saying one word every 10 minutes, pretty much like Snake Plissken in these movies. So there's a comparison there.
When you mentioned about the whole virus and they're on a time limit, and I actually wrote in my notes when Snake is infected with the man-made Pluoxin 7 virus that will kill him in 10 hours, I was like, I wrote in my notes, absolutely no plot change. It's a word-for-word sequel, same story, different city. That's, and here's, before I get to, the box office and critical, I wrote, within the first 5 minutes, I was almost out. They play it completely hammy, too many inside jokes. They took what could have been a very cool premise. Even if they just, took it from one prison city on the East Coast to one prison city on the West Coast and play it out seriously, but they almost play it for laughs in this one. And upon rewatching it, I didn't find too many redeemable things about Escape from L.A.
I agree. But I did. It's hard to put into words. It's not a good movie, but I did enjoy watching it. Like it's weird,
Okay.
Like it's strange. Like I go back to like Eddie and the Cruisers. Like Eddie and the Cruisers is not a good movie, and the sequel's even worse. But they're so much fun to watch. I don't know why. Maybe in those movies it's the music, because the music is really good. But nothing else about them is, it's so ridiculous, especially especially the second one. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you ever seen the Eddie and the Cruisers movies?
A long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun. Not worth doing a podcast on it, but you should watch them. I'd be interested to hear what you thought. But I get the same, like I enjoy watching them, but I know they're not good. I feel the same way about these. More L.A. than New York.
Well, speaking of L.A. grossed over $25 million again on a $50 million budget, about as much as its predecessor, but little more than half its significantly higher budget. So not a ton of money there. The movie was made at a loss. The critical reception grew was as followed. Rotten Tomatoes, 54% approval rating based on 50 views, with an average score of 5.58 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, Escape from L.A. has its moments, although it certainly suffers in comparison to the cult classic that preceded it. Roger Ebert gave the film 3.5 stars out of a possible 4, and wrote that the movie felt it was an attempt to satirize the genre while exploiting it. Escape from L.A. has such manic energy, such a weird cockeyed vision. Cockeyed. That it may work on some moviegoers as satire and on others the real thing. Todd McCarthy of Variety wrote, a cartoonish, cheesy, and surprisingly campy apocalyptic actioner. John Carpenter's Escape from L.A. is spiked with a number of funny and anarchic ideas, but doesn't begin to pull them together in a coherent whole. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly gave it a C+ and wrote, Carpenter never was a filmmaker. His cult claimed him to be, but Escape from L.A., he at least has the instinct to keep his hero moving, like some leather bike caddy. I'll give you one more. Stephen Holden of the New York Times wrote that the film's in-jokes go a long way towards keeping afloat a hopelessly choppy adventure spoof that doesn't even try to match the ghoulish surrealism of its forerunner. 2013 perspective. Alan Zieberman of The Atlantic called Snake Plissken a pro-nostalgia anti-hero, disgusted by the world around him, while contrasting the film's then futuristic plot elements against modern-day reality. Zieberman wrote that the film's ending is more profound today, as Plissken would be annoyed by our fascination with technology, citing the example of two friends who ignore each other while transfixed with their smartphones. So, I mentioned that Carpenter was on record saying Escape from L.A. is better than New York. Groo, final thoughts as we wrap up Escape from L.A.?
Yeah, well, I mean, he sees it. He's probably right in his own mind, because Escape from L.A. is probably, look, you said it, it's the same movie, except he probably did more what he wanted to do. Escape from L.A. is probably what he wanted Escape from New York to be, and that's probably why he likes it, and that's probably why he likes it better, but it didn't make money, although, even in the mid-90s, $25 million is not a bomb. It just lost money. A bomb is a movie that makes, 100,000 or, a couple million. But 25 million is still like people did go to see it. I
hear you, but it didn't clear it lost a lot of money.
Right. Well, I mean, if we're just talking about
a bomb, but
yeah, no, but if we're just talking about, how much money it made, forgetting about what it cost, yes, it's a failure based on its budget. But if you look at a movie that makes $25 million, that means it did bring some people in, which, so it can't be called an absolute disaster, but which is, you could say the same for like Terminator Dark Fate. Made $100 million, but they call it a bomb because it cost $200 to make. But it still made.
Actually, it made a lot more. It made a lot more than $100 million. I think it closed internationally close to $300 million.
Okay, but it's still
for some reason, yes, between the budget, the marketing. Because I did a little reading yesterday after I watched it.
So they still call it a failure, and even though millions of people saw it, so it's all relative. But Escape from L.A., look, we've said it all. Same movie, bigger budget, yet same special effects. I don't see where the money went. Definitely didn't go into the cast, because I would say that the cast of Escape from New York, while not an A-list cast, was more bordering on A-list than anybody in Escape from L.A. I mean, Escape from L.A., you've got, Ernest Borgnine is he was an Oscar winner, and he was a star. Cliff Robertson was an Oscar winner also for a movie called Charlie, I think, from like the 1960s.
Yeah, it's Flowers for Algernon.
Yeah, but by the 90s, nobody knew who Cliff Robertson was.
Oh, but I don't know when Ernest Borgnine won an Oscar. I'm assuming
he won it for Marty in like 1960 or 61, around then.
Okay, great. So, New York was 81. I'm sure.
No, but he was still known. But he was still known because he was in McHale's Navy. You know, he had a good career. He had a good career going.
Think that the cast from L.A. I mean, if you're gonna, I think the cast from L.A. is the same style as New York. Kitschy, Buscemi, Pam Grier, kind of cultish. Peter Fonda. These are real cult heroes in the acting world.
Yeah, I give the nod to the ensemble from New York.
Okay, but I don't think right. But your point is it's so far off. I don't think so. I think LA's cast.
Well,
I just think the way they
remember how you said. Remember how you everything that you said. Donald Pleasance did well in Escape from New York. In my mind, Cliff Robertson did wrong. Cliff Robertson, rest in peace, was. In that movie, he was hamming it up, but badly. He was, he wasn't even trying to make believe that he was a good guy. Every word was like, "I'll get you now, Pliskin. What are you going to do?" He seemed like he was in a cartoon. He was not taking it seriously. Pleasance was. That's the difference between the two. And they're playing the same part.
I just don't think you liked Robertson's role because he's Jewish.
Was he Jewish?
No, I'm joking.
Was the character Jewish? I don't recall.
No, I'm joking.
One thing I'm a little confused about though, and maybe I missed it. Maybe you picked up on it. At the end of one, he gets a presidential pardon. Why is he still a prisoner in Escape from L.A.?
Well, the only thing I can tell you is they reference an incident in Cleveland, and so supposedly that was perhaps that's something that was put into comic book form. I believe that I
forgot about that. Yeah.
So speaking of which, Andrew, are there any more Escape movies in the future? CreditTheRap.com. Escape from New York writer Lee Winnell gives status update on remake. I'm a big fan. But I'm not concretely sure this will be my next film. The Escape from New York remake, which has been in development since 2015, is not seeing much movement, says screenwriter Winnell. At this moment, there is no update, she told TheWrap.com. It was something that was instigated, and the train left the station before it was ready. Apparently a press release went out before it was ready to go. Once this film stops and relaxes, I'll have time to sit on a beach somewhere and think about what I'll want to do next. I'm a big fan of Escape from New York, but I'm not concretely sure that this will be my next film. If it was in the works, I'd tell you, but it's something that's just sitting on a shelf at this moment. Fox had been planning to remake John Carpenter's cult classic Escape from New York since 2015. Robert Rodriguez signed on 2017 to direct. Winnell signed on in 2019 to write a new draft of the screenplay. And so just want to go over real quick some of the early plot rumors for an Escape remake, also courtesy of Rat.com. Grew some quick thoughts on Snake Plissken's real name. Pliskin in the previous two Escape films didn't have a name, but now he does. He's Colonel Robert Snake Pliskin.
I remember in L.A. he was referred to as an initial, like S. Snake Plissken. I don't think it was R. I think it was S.
I'm just saying this would be on the remake. This is some of the plot.
Oh, okay.
Rumors
I wouldn't want to see. I don't want to see a remake. I want to see a sequel. Or a prequel.
Well, do you want to hear some of the things that they're mulling about in Escape World, or you just want to drop it?
No. Go tell. A remake would be essentially the same story. No.
Okay. Well, bad guy won't be the Duke of New York. Instead, he's lean, intensely charismatic Thomas Newton, the Playboy heir to a biotech corporation. 5 years ago, he decided to donate his entire fortune. Sound like a good guy, right? He's not.
I hate it already. Come on.
The role originated by Lee Van Cleef will now be played by a woman. The film will introduce us to a new CIA Deputy Executive Director, Roberta Hawke.
Oh. So it's woke from New York? Is that what it is?
President's going to be transgender. No, I'm joking. New York City will not be a maximum security prison, which the writer goes on to say, weird, right? Because New York
it'll be a vegan restaurant.
Well, okay, so you're not that far off.
Oh,
New York, hold on. I want you to hear this because this is interesting. New York being a prison was kind of crucial to the whole escape from New York concept. In the reboot, New York is breathtakingly lovely. Manhattan is the island we know, but now with more towering glass structures and a high undulating glass wall, the sky is alive with drones as serene as bees, and artificial intelligence controls all in the form of an ethnically ambiguous, cheery young woman named April. A small staff of technicians and researchers known as seers monitor all. High concept, actually, if you think about it. Could be, I think you're out of it already.
It sounds like an episode of Sex and the City. I mean, what the hell are they? Is Snake Plissken anywhere in there? Because it doesn't sound like it.
Funny you mentioned the remake doesn't start in New York City. The original Escape film deleted the opening scene that showed how Snake Plissken was apprehended. The new version won't be. The new version won't. I guess they'll start off with how Snake gets apprehended. The film imagines a world of chaos. So they're going to say globally, 1 out of every 75 human beings is now a refugee, internally displaced, or seeking asylum. That sounds pretty realistic these days.
Yeah, well, you know what? If I were the owner of this property, I would wait on this because no one's going to want to see this kind of movie right now.
In the remake, Snake only has the remake. Snake only has 11 hours to complete his mission. In the original film, he had 22.
Oh,
Snake Plissken's mission is to bring Newton back alive. So, some thoughts on Escape, Groo.
Do I have to write the fucking reboot? Are they going to make me do this shit? Because what you just described to me sounds like not only something I would never go see in the theater, but something I would avoid. As I would wear a mask if I was walking by the poster. It just. I mean, it's horrible. Are there any original ideas? Are they basically telling us, oh, if we change this man to a woman and this adult to a child and this dog to a Asian person, that's our innovation? Is that what they're saying?
Look, they did a remake of. Actually, they didn't do a remake. They did a prequel to The Thing, which was pretty terrible. So
what was that
maybe
called?
John Carp.
It's called
The Thing.
Oh, The Thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, do you remember in the first Thing, the movie starts off with a dog running onto the Arctic camp that Kurt Russell is in?
Yeah.
And the dog is supposedly infected with this creature. So the prequel shows you how the whole backstory on how the dog gets infected, and the movie ends with the dog running into the Antarctic camp that's Kurt Russell and his cronies are.
That's terrible. I don't think it
wasn't done well, but the original Thing movie is just it's one of the best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really great practical effects. And again, I think when Carpenter takes his shit seriously, you
see what you just described to me cements even further that I'd rather see a sequel with Kurt Russell as the character taking it into a place that they've never been before. What you're describing
to me.
You think
he's too old?
No, no. They have to write it that way. They have to write it. Yeah. Like I said, they did Logan. They did a beautiful job with a movie like Logan. Now you take it seriously. In this time, the 80s were the 80s, the 90s were 90s. Now we're here. So but at this point, I don't see Kurt Russell caring about that anymore. But that's all I'd be interested in seeing. Would I be interested in seeing The Rock in an Escape from New York remake? No. For the same reason that I wasn't interested in seeing The Rock in the Jumanji remake or the Die Hard remake. What was it? Skyscraper? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, I'm not interested in seeing these recycled plots for Dwayne Johnson or Jason Statham or Jeff Speakman or insert action hero here. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested, and I don't think audiences are either anymore. I think they need more than like they wouldn't accept a movie like Escape from New York today.
Well, do you think that these remakes and reboots are out there because there's just like a dearth of sort of original content?
I guess so, but at least they're taking the original ideas and expanding on them, and they're not just retelling the same exact story over and over and over again. What's a good example? What's a recent remake that we can get that we can draw upon? I'm trying to think. I'm having trouble. A movie that's been remade recent. Well, I'll give you one that really, ironically, a Kurt Russell one that they recently screwed up. They did the movie Overboard, which to me is an 80s classic. Oh, come on. The original Overboard's hilarious.
No. I didn't even want to see it when I saw the trailer.
I didn't see it.
Now it's
there was
a Latino
no reason.
guy.
Right, a Latino guy and a girl, and they switch roles. No, that's not it. That's not what we want to see. And I don't think people went to see it. Why? Because it's not original. What I would want to see is those characters from the original movie today with their grown kids. I don't know, something. Come up with something. Write, create, do something original. Don't just be creative with the casting. That's not enough. Especially, at least if you're going to do that, I think you could do better than, who was it? Anna Faris? Is that her?
Yes.
Yes, master thespian we're talking about. Anna Faris. And the Oscar oh, come on. That sex scene with John Cena? Was that her or was that Amy Schumer? Did you almost say Chuck Schumer?
No, that's her uncle, I believe.
Who? Chuck Schumer's really? Uncle. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What's the movie where Cena was screwing somebody and?
Yeah, that's what's her? That was her best movie, and that's one of his. That really kicked off. I mean, he has some real acting talent.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't want to see, because the reason that Kurt Russell is endearing as this character is because he's not superhuman, but. You take The Rock, who is built like a truck, and put him in any situation, you're never going to look at him and say, oh, my God, I'm scared for him. Because he could beat the shit out of anybody.
All right, well, listen.
That's why The Rock is better in comedies, because he is funny. He's better in movies like that than these generic action movies. But Kurt Russell is more human. That's why he's more likable in these kinds of roles. So, like I said, the only Escape from New York or L.A. or thing that I'm interested in would be a continuation, because Kurt Russell is Snake Plissken. I don't think anybody else could pull it off.
Well, Groo, that wraps us up for Escape from New York, Escape from L.A. Kurt Russell.
Wait, you got to say it again. We lost it. 1, 2, 3. Rip 'em.
Rip 'em.
There you go.
Whack, whack.